Hi, I'd like to talk to you all today about how to responsibly develop tools to fight COVID. We need to be careful about developing AI-based tools that can be used to oppress our privacy and human rights. In the recent demonstrations in Washington, D.C., for instance, automated aircraft meant for war were used by the US government to do surveillance on domestic demonstrators instead of on foreign soldiers. This was a violation of those citizens' rights to demonstrate and their right to avoid unlawful search by the government. The current flood of tech innovations for fighting the COVID virus can very easily be used in the same way by authoritarian actors around the world. Now, some our AI-based tools for fighting the virus are really good and relatively harmless, but a number of them are ethically problematic. An example of a good one with seemingly little downside is Google's use of its AI called DeepMind to predict more quickly the protein structure of COVID. This will help scientists develop cures. The problematic innovations are AI-based applications used for tracking and isolating people with the virus. There are wearable studies, for instance, with fitness devices that have to do with this. The biggest of these is being done by the Scripps Institute in California. That study gathers data from digital devices and transmits it to a central healthcare program database. Now, data shared includes that collected by any fitness monitor that somebody wears, like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. It could also include a person's electronic medical records. There are three big problems with this kind of tool. Really two big ones and a subsidiary one of the second one. So let me talk about those two problems. The first one is privacy. According to the study's FAQ, you can't ever delete the data that you've given the study, and the study keeps it indefinitely. So even though it's anonymized, this is not the best practice for subject security. If there's a mistake or a data breach, people's electronic medical records are vulnerable. The second big problem is information security. So even if Scripps is careful and suffers no data breaches, the apps used, like Fitbit or Apple Health, to take data from subjects do send that personal data to third parties, and what they do with information is often not as strictly controlled as with the first-party software. This would also increase privacy risks. In general, the big privacy risk with all information is the general problem with the lack of cybersecurity for businesses in general. And that includes all medical databases these days. Like most businesses, medical companies just don't devote enough attention and money to cybersecurity. The evidence for this is the rampant reports of breaches by hackers over the last 5 years, especially with ransomware at hospitals. Also, there are authoritarian problems, as I alluded to in my opening remarks. Authoritarian governments or authoritarian elements within governments are already investigating alternate uses of AI tracking made for COVID. China, for instance, provides one example of expanding use of tracing apps for COVID to new users. Now that China's tamed the virus somewhat, its government is looking for new ways to use the tracking app that they forced most people to load onto their smartphones. With the virus, the government used the app to track and isolate sick citizens. But now, their main idea is to use it for surveillance of the population. One way they're trying to coerce people to keep using that app beyond the COVID era is to make the app a digital assistant for accessing local services of all kinds, not just medical ones. For example, they could use the app to unlock coupons for stores, and thereby, if that's done, the citizens would be persuaded perhaps to keep the app on their device, and then the app would be used to track them for political purposes. So what's the answer to this? I think there are 5 principles that need to be followed, and these principles are agreed upon by a lot of experts around the world in order to develop safe tracking AI for the virus. The first principle is that the most privacy-preserving data options need to be used in the app. For instance, data anonymization, and also decentralized operation. There should be no centralized database that information is sent to, because that can be used by bad actors. The second principle, there should always be purpose limitation built into the AI application. It can't be used for anything except the purpose of tracking people with the with the COVID virus. The third principle is voluntary participation only. That is, citizens can't be forced to download the app and to use it. Fourth principle, transparency. Sharing and open access for all data and for how it's used. And the last principle, and I'll end with this, are time limits on any application's usability. That is, it can only be used for a certain amount of time and then it self-destructs, for instance. Thanks very much, and I hope you found this informative. Good luck with everything.